We're making a healthy Zuppa Toscana soup with sausage-seasoned ground turkey, Greek yogurt, and hidden veggies blended right into the broth. It's creamy, packed with flavor, and a blessing at any dinner table. Hello, my name is Nicole Bonilla. If you love healthier recipes to our favorite foods, then you are in the right place. Now you're welcome to jot down these ingredients as we go along, or you can click on the link that's in the video description below. And that will take you to the full recipe with all the details, including nutrition facts, ingredients and substitutions, and frequently asked questions. First, we want to chop up about 1.25 pounds of our potatoes. Now you can use whatever potatoes that you like. I really like using these little baby red potatoes because they're really easy to slice, and then you get lots of this nice red surface area, which I think is really aesthetic in the soup. And one of our secret vegetable ingredients that we're going to blend into the broth is a yellow squash. So I just chopped it up into these little bite-sized pieces that will be really easy to saute. And then I just diced half of a yellow onion. You could use white as well. And then I just chopped down about 4 cups of kale. And if they have a thick little spine on it, you'll want to chop that up first. And I find it works best to not have any really long pieces, but to make sure they're chopped up so they're a little more bite-sized. And then I diced 5 cloves of garlic. Now you could use any protein that you like in the soup. To make it a little bit on the leaner side, I've chosen some ground turkey, but we're gonna season it so it tastes like a sausage. But if you're short on time, you could just do a pre-made sausage and just chop them up into little bite-sized pieces. So now we're ready to start making our soup. Now you can use any pot you like that has a sturdy bottom to it, or even a Dutch oven. I love using my Hex-Clad pot because it gives me the best of both cast iron, non-stick, and stainless steel. And I included a link in the description if you'd like to check it out. So first we're going to add 1/4 cup of butter, and then we're going to add in our zucchini and our onions, season with a little bit of salt, and we'll give those a good stir. And then we're just going to let these cook for a couple minutes until they're nice and soft. I love that these pots come with matching lids because that will help speed up the cooking at each step. Now while these are softening, we can go ahead and add 4 cups of chicken stock to our blender. And I love using this jar of better than bouillon because then I don't have to store big containers of chicken stock. All I have to do is add 1 teaspoon per cup of water, and then you'll have a very delicious stock. Well, now that our vegetables have about a minute left, I'm going to go ahead and add in our garlic. And then we'll give that a good stir. And then just let that go for about another minute or 2 until that garlic blooms. Well, now it's been about 1.5 minutes, and I can tell by smelling it that our garlic is nice and soft. So now we want to very carefully transfer this to our blender. And now that our pan is at just a medium-high heat and nice and buttery on the bottom, we can go ahead and add our ground turkey. And then we're going to season it up to taste just like sausage. So I'm going to start with 2 teaspoons of sage, and this is really the key herb that really gives it that flavor. And a teaspoon of paprika, and a teaspoon of oregano, and about a good 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And if you like your meat to a little bit saltier, you can go up to 1 teaspoon. And about 1/8 teaspoon of some black pepper. And then to give it a nice little flavor kick, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of some Worcestershire sauce. And then we can just come with our spatula and just mix that all together. And then while our turkey continues to brown, we want to blend together this stock. And blending together the zucchini and the onion is what really gives extra depth of flavor to the soup. And it's adding more fiber, and it makes the onions the most easily digestible. So I'll just put on my lid, and then we'll just blend this on high till it's all nice and smooth. Well, that looks perfect. And then we can go ahead and set this aside until our turkey is cooked. Then we can come in and stir our turkey. And it's still a little bit pink, so it has another couple minutes to go. Now that our meat is nice and browned and cooked through, we can add our stock. So I'm just going to pour in our blended stock, as well as our potatoes. And we'll add another teaspoon of oregano, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And of course, you can adjust the salt and pepper to your liking. Give this a quick stir. And we're going to put on the lid, and then just leave this at medium heat for 10 minutes. And then we're going to add in our kale and let it go for an additional 10 minutes. Because the potatoes need longer to cook than the kale, and we don't want the kale to get mushy. Now, if you could use more healthy inspiration on a regular basis, I invite you to join my email list. All you have to do is click on the link in the video description below, and that is the best way for us to stay connected. Well, our soup has been simmering for 10 minutes, and oh my goodness, it smells so good. So now we can dump in our kale. I know it looks like a lot, but it's going to wilt. And we'll just stir that down in. And then we'll just put on our lid and let this simmer for another 10 minutes. Well, here's our soup after it's been simmering for an additional 10 minutes, and then I've taken it off of the heat. And this is really important before we blend in our Greek yogurt. So you'll want to give it a good stir and make sure that it's no longer simmering, because if we add the Greek yogurt while the soup is still simmering, then it's going to curdle on us and become kind of lumpy and grainy, which we don't want. So I can tell that our soup is no longer simmering, so we can go ahead and add 1 cup of some plain Greek yogurt. Now this is optional, but just adds a lot of creaminess as well as a protein boost. And while our soup is still very warm, we're just gonna stir this in. And all we have to do is stir for maybe 30 seconds and it's all gonna dissolve and melt into the soup. And I love using Greek yogurt as a healthier alternative to like half and half or heavy whipping cream, but it still gives you that really creamy, rich texture. And I love getting the protein boost. Well, now that that is all blended in, the soup is ready to serve. Now you can also adjust if you want the soup to be a little more on the liquidy, soupy side, or if you want it to be a little bit thicker, more like a chowder. And you just adjust that by how much chicken stock that you added. And if you want it to be a little bit thinner at this stage, go ahead and just stir in a little bit more of hot water. But I think this consistency is perfect. And I love having the red and green colors, which is why I like leaving on the potato skin. But you could certainly have peeled it off in the beginning if you preferred. Now we get a bite, blow on it so it's not too hot. That is seriously so good. That is the most delicious blend of tangy and creamy and meaty. I love that subtle creamy sweetness that you get from the potatoes. And then the ground turkey just has that really delicious sausage seasoning to it. And then the kale is just really soft and just kind of blends in with everything else. And I love that you get the flavor from the Greek yogurt and the onions and the yellow zucchini, but they're visually undetectable, which is really good if you have some picky eaters. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today in my kitchen. I've included the link to the full recipe and it's in the video description below, and that will take you to my website, gentletummy.com. And I also invite you to like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I invite you to join me again in my kitchen.